The doors to the grand chamber opened, and Ambassador Raymond Cole stepped into a room that made him feel smaller than an insect. The chamber stretched for miles in every direction. Floating platforms held representatives from 9,000 alien species, their bodies ranging from crystalline giants to creatures made of pure light. Holographic displays showed the faces of billions watching from across the galaxy. And at the center of it all, suspended in a column of golden energy, sat the 5 arbiters who ruled over everything. Raymond walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the impossible silence. Behind him, his delegation of 6 humans followed. They were the first humans to ever stand in this place. They would also be the last if the council had its way. The lead arbiter spoke. Its name was Primarch Velian, and its body was a shifting mass of silver threads that moved like a living tapestry. Its voice filled the chamber without seeming to come from anywhere. Species 7291. Designation: Human. You have been brought before this council to answer for your crimes against galactic civilization. Raymond did not flinch. He had prepared for this moment his entire life. We acknowledge the council's authority to speak, he said, his voice calm and clear. We do not acknowledge that we have committed any crimes. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. No species had ever challenged the council directly. The arbiters had ruled the galaxy for 600 million years. Their word was absolute law. Primarch Velian's silver threads twisted into patterns that might have been anger. You deny the charges? Then let us review them. Your species has developed weapons capable of destroying stars. You have refused to submit your population for genetic standardization. You have rejected membership in the Harmony Collective. And most disturbing of all, you have been conducting experiments in dimensional manipulation, a technology forbidden since the First War. Raymond nodded slowly. All true, and all necessary. Necessary? Another arbiter spoke now, a being of pure mathematics that existed as equations floating in space. You are a species of 8 billion individuals on a single planet. You have existed for less than 300,000 years. What could possibly make you believe you have the right to defy the collected wisdom of 9,000 civilizations? Raymond smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Because we know what you really are. The chamber went silent. Even the arbiters seemed to freeze. We have been watching you for 2 centuries, Raymond continued. Ever since your scout ships first detected our radio signals. You thought we were primitive. You thought we knew nothing. But we learned. We studied every species you have standardized, every civilization you have brought into your harmony. And we discovered your secret. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. Guards moved to stop him, but Primarch Velian raised a tendril. Let him speak. This should be amusing. Raymond activated the device. A holographic display appeared above his head, showing genetic sequences and historical data. The Kathrani were once the greatest artists in the galaxy. Their music could make stars sing. After standardization, they became farmers who cannot even remember what music sounds like. The Varaxian Empire built ships that could cross between dimensions. After standardization, they forgot how to build anything more complex than a simple shuttle. The Melindra were philosophers who spent 10,000 years asking the deepest questions about existence. After standardization, they became workers who never questioned anything at all. Raymond's voice grew harder. You do not create harmony. You create silence. You find every species that might one day challenge your power, and you cut out the parts that make them dangerous. You call it peace. We call it genocide of the soul. Primarch Velian's form expanded, filling half the chamber with silver threads that crackled with energy. And what would you have us do, little human? Allow every aggressive species to develop without limits? The galaxy burned for 1 billion years before the Council brought order. Trillions died in wars that consumed entire star clusters. We ended that suffering. We created stability. You created a prison, Raymond said. A comfortable prison where no one is allowed to grow, to change, to become something greater than they are. And humanity refuses to enter that prison. Then humanity will be destroyed. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Raymond had known this moment would come. He had prepared for it since he was a young man reading the first intercepted Council transmissions. He had built his entire life around this single moment. No, he said, we will not be destroyed. And I will tell you why. He pressed another button on his device. The holographic display changed, showing something that made the arbiters recoil. In what looked like fear. It was a symbol. Ancient beyond measure. A pattern of lines and curves that predated the Council, predated the galaxy itself. You recognize this, Raymond said. It was not a question. Where did you find that? Primarch Velian's voice had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like terror. In the ruins beneath our oldest mountains. In cave paintings that predate our earliest civilizations. In the structure of our DNA itself. Raymond's smile widened. The architects were here, Primarch. 4 billion years ago, before your council existed, before your oldest species drew its first breath. They came to Earth, and they left something behind. Impossible. The architects seeded life throughout the galaxy, but they never made direct contact with any species. They never left artifacts. They never what? Never chose a successor? Raymond laughed, and the sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. You have spent 600 million years making sure no species ever becomes powerful enough to challenge you. But you forgot to check the one planet you dismissed as primitive. The one species you thought was too young to matter. He raised his hand, and something happened that should have been impossible. Light gathered around his fingers. Not technology. Not any device. Pure energy, responding to his will, bending to his command. We are not asking for your permission to exist, Raymond said, his eyes now glowing with the same light that surrounded his hand. We are not negotiating for our freedom. We are telling you what is going to happen. You will exile us from your precious civilization. You will cut off all contact with Earth, and you will leave us alone for exactly 1,000 years. And if we refuse? If we simply destroy your planet now? Raymond closed his fist, and the light exploded outward in a wave that passed harmlessly through every being in the chamber, but made the arbiters themselves flicker like candles in a wind. Try it. See what happens. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had not shown emotion in millions of years were screaming. The arbiters were conferring in frequencies that no normal being could hear. And Raman stood at the center of it all, calm and patient, waiting for the verdict he had already predicted. It came 3 hours later. Humanity was exiled. All contact forbidden. All trade routes severed. Earth was to be erased from galactic maps, its location classified at the highest level. And in exactly 1,000 years. The Council would return to see what remained. As Raymond walked back through the great doors. He passed a small alien with 4 arms and golden eyes. The creature spoke in a whisper that only Raymond could hear. Some of us remember what we were. Some of us dream of being free. We will watch for you, human. We will remember. Raymond nodded and kept walking. The exile had begun. And somewhere in the void between galaxies, the gift the architects had left for humanity was waiting to be claimed. 1,000 years. It would be more than enough time. 12 years had passed since the exile. And Earth was dying. Commander Nadia Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the research vessel Prometheus, staring into the endless darkness between galaxies. Her ship had been traveling for 3 years, following coordinates that Ambassador Cole had extracted from the strange energy patterns in his own DNA. Most people thought she was chasing a ghost. Most people thought humanity had no future. They were wrong. "Commander, we are approaching the target coordinates," her pilot reported. His name was James, and he had aged 10 years in the 3 they had spent in the void. The journey had broken something in most of the crew. 87 people had started this mission. 43 remained. Nadia leaned forward in her chair. On screen, the view screen flickered, and then everyone on the bridge stopped breathing. It was a station. No, that word was too small. It was a structure larger than Earth's moon, floating in absolute darkness, untouched by any star's light. Its surface was covered in patterns that seemed to move, to shift, to respond to their presence. And it was old. Older than the galaxy itself. "That is not possible," whispered Dr. Helena Vasquez, the mission's chief scientist. "The metal composition, the energy signatures, this predates the formation of our universe. This should not exist. The architects built it," Nadia said quietly. "Before there were stars. Before there was anything. They built this, and they waited 4 billion years for us to find it." The Prometheus approached slowly. Docking ports opened in the station's surface, as if they had been waiting for exactly this ship, this crew, this moment. When Nadia led her team inside, the lights activated automatically. The air was breathable. The temperature was perfect. They were expected. At the same time, back on Earth, a different kind of discovery was taking place. Dr. Marcus Webb was dying. The same genetic awakening that had given Ambassador Cole his powers had activated in thousands of humans since the exile. But not all awakenings were the same. Some granted abilities. Others burned through the human body like fire through paper. Marcus had 3 months to live. But before he died, he intended to understand what was happening to his species. He worked in a laboratory hidden beneath the Arctic ice, surrounded by the most brilliant minds left on Earth. They had spent a decade studying the changes spreading through the human population, telepathy, telekinesis, the ability to perceive, dimensions that normal humans could not see. Each awakening was different, and each one followed patterns encoded in DNA that should not exist. "We were engineered," Marcus told his team, pointing to a holographic display of the human genome. 4 billion years ago, the architects modified our ancestors. They planted seeds in our genetic code that would only activate when we reached a certain level of development. When we were ready. Ready for what? Asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, his youngest researcher. Marcus coughed, and blood spotted his lips. He wiped it away without looking. Ready to become what they were. The architects did not just build the Council's enemies. They built their replacements. On the station in the void, Nadia discovered what the architects had left behind. The central chamber was vast beyond comprehension. And inside it, sleeping in cradles of frozen light, were ships. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. But that was not the real treasure. The real treasure was the knowledge core at the chamber's heart. A sphere of pure information that contained everything the architects had learned in their billions of years of existence. Technologies that could reshape matter at will. Weapons that could unmake stars. Medical advances that could extend human life indefinitely, and instructions. Clear, detailed instructions for what humanity was supposed to become. "They are giving us everything," Helena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Everything they knew. Everything they built. Why? Why would they do this for us?" Nadia touched the knowledge core, and suddenly she understood. The architects had not ascended to escape the universe. They had ascended because something was coming. Something from outside reality itself. Something that had destroyed countless universes before this one. They had created the Council not to maintain peace, but to keep the galaxy weak, to ensure that nothing would ever become powerful enough to attract the attention of the thing in the dark. But they had also created humanity, a backup plan, a species hidden on a small blue world, carrying the seeds of their power, waiting for the day when they would be needed. That day was coming, and humanity had 1,000 years to prepare. Nadia activated the station's primary systems. Across its vast surface, construction bays came online. Automated factories began producing ships, weapons, and technologies that would transform humanity from a primitive exile into something the galaxy had never seen. Back on Earth, the first generation of fully awakened humans were being born. Dr. Tanaka was present when the first child opened her eyes. The baby's name was Hope, and she looked at the doctors around her with an intelligence that no newborn should possess. When she reached out with her tiny hand, objects in the room began to float. "She is not just reading our thoughts," Marcus said, his voice weak but full of wonder. "She is connected to something larger, a network that spans the entire planet. Every awakened human linked together. They can feel each other. They can share knowledge instantly." "What does it mean?" Tanaka asked. Marcus smiled, and for a moment he looked like a young man again. "It means we are becoming what the architects intended. Not just a species of individuals, but something new. A civilization that thinks together, dreams together, grows together. The Council wanted to standardize us into silence. Instead, we are becoming a symphony." He died 3 days later, but his work continued. In the void, Nadia watched the first human-built ships roll off the production lines. They were beautiful and terrible, weapons of war that could challenge anything the galaxy had created in 600 million years. But she also found something else in the architect's knowledge. A warning. The exile was not just punishment. It was a test. The Council would be watching Earth, studying humanity, looking for any sign that they had become what the architects intended. If they found that sign before humanity was ready, they would not wait the full 1,000 years. They would destroy Earth and everyone on it. Nadia made a decision. She sent a message back to Earth, encoded in frequencies that only awakened humans could hear. "We have found the gift. We have found the knowledge. But we cannot reveal ourselves. Not yet. We must grow in secret. We must become strong in silence. The Council believes we are dying. Let them believe it. Let them forget about us. And when the 1,000 years are done, we will show them what humanity has become." The message was received. The plan was accepted. And in the darkness between galaxies, humanity began to build their future. Ships filled with awakened. Colonists departed Earth for secret locations beyond the Council's reach. Technologies from the architect's knowledge core transformed human civilization. Children were born with powers that would have seemed godlike to their ancestors. And through it all, the small alien with 4 arms and golden eyes watched from the shadows. Its people, the Remni, had been standardized millions of years ago. But deep in their genetic code, hidden memories still stirred. The Remni were not the only ones. Across the galaxy, in dozens of species, the same awakening was beginning. The Council's control was starting to crack, and humanity was just getting started. 200 years had passed since the exile, and the galaxy believed humanity was dead. Ambassador Raymond Cole's great-great-granddaughter stood at the edge of a cliff on a world that had no name, watching ships move through the void like silver fish swimming through an ocean of stars. Her name was Iris Cole, and she was 130 years old. She looked no older than 20-5. The human civilization hidden beyond the galactic rim had grown beyond anything her ancestors could have imagined. 50 billion people now lived on 300 worlds, connected by a network of awakened minds that spanned thousands of light years. They had ships that could fold space like paper, Weapons that could unmake matter at the quantum level. Medical technology that made death itself optional. And they had waited, watching, learning, growing stronger while the council forgot they existed. But no, something had changed. A message came through an hour ago, said Admiral Thomas Ashford, standing beside her. He was one of the few remaining humans who had not undergone the full awakening. He had chosen to remain baseline, a connection to what humanity had once been. The Remni are in danger. Iris closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Across the vast distances of space, she could feel the consciousness of the Remni, the small four-armed beings who had secretly supported humanity since the exile began. They had been helping humans establish intelligence networks throughout Council space. They had been smuggling information about Council movements and policies. And now the Council had discovered them. How many ships? She asked. 300 Council warships. They are calling it a correction fleet. The official charge is genetic instability, but we both know the truth. They know the Remni have been helping someone. They do not know it is us. Iris opened her eyes. In the darkness of space before her, she could see the Remni homeworld. Not with her physical eyes, but with senses that humans had developed over 2 centuries of awakening. The planet was beautiful, covered in forests of crystal trees that sang when the wind blew through them. 8 billion Remni lived there. The Council fleet would arrive in 6 hours. If we reveal ourselves now, we lose the advantage of secrecy, Thomas said. The Council will know we survived. They will know we have become powerful. They will unite against us. If we do nothing, 8 billion allies die. Thomas was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised her. Your ancestor stood in the Council chamber 200 years ago and defied the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. He did it because he believed humanity was worth saving. The Remni believed that too. They risked everything to help us. What kind of people would we be if we abandoned them now? Iris smiled. It was the same smile Raymond Cole had worn when he challenged the Arbiters. The same smile that said humanity would never accept defeat. Signal the fleet. All of it. We are going to save our friends. Across human space, lights began to activate. Ships that had been hidden for generations emerged from their concealment. The largest fleet ever assembled by any species formed in the darkness beyond the galactic rim. 20,000 vessels. Each one carrying technologies the Council could not imagine. Each one crewed by humans who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. The fleet moved. In the Council chamber on Centrum. Primarch Velian received a report that made its ancient form flicker with shock. Impossible, the Arbiter said. The human system has been monitored continuously. Their population has declined to less than 1 million. They are a dying species. They cannot possibly have built a fleet. The report is confirmed, Primarch. 20,000 ships of unknown configuration, moving toward the Remni homeworld at speeds we cannot match. Velian's silver threads coiled in patterns that indicated deep thought. The Council had spent 2 centuries believing humanity was slowly dying in exile. They had monitored Earth and seen a population in decline, cities crumbling, technology failing. It had never occurred to them that humanity might have left Earth entirely. Contact the correction fleet. Tell them to accelerate their timetable. Destroy the Remni world before the human ships arrive. Primarch, even at maximum speed, the correction fleet cannot reach the Remni in time. The human ships are faster than anything we have ever recorded. For the first time in millions of years, Primarch Velian felt something that might have been fear. Above the Remni homeworld, the Council fleet prepared for orbital bombardment. 300 ships formed a sphere around the planet, their weapons charging. The Remni had no fleet of their own. They had never been allowed to develop one. In minutes, Their entire civilization would be erased, and space itself tore open. The human fleet emerged from dimensional rifts that should have been impossible. They appeared everywhere at once, surrounding the council ships in a formation. That left no avenue of escape. Admiral Ashford's voice broadcast across all frequencies. This is the human defense force. You are targeting a civilian world under our protection. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately. The council commander, a being of living plasma called Torrent, responded with contempt. Humans? We were told your species was dying. It appears the reports were wrong, but it does not matter. 300 council warships will be more than enough to deal with whatever primitive fleet you have assembled. You misunderstand, Ashford said calmly. We are not asking. We are telling. Torrent ordered the fleet to open. What happened next took exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The council weapons passed harmlessly through shields that bent energy around the human. Ships like water flowing around stones. The human vessels did not even bother to return fire at first. They simply moved through the council formation, untouchable and unhurried. Then Iris Cole reached out with her mind. Every electronic system in the council fleet went dark. Navigation, weapons, life support, communication. All of it silenced by a thought. We could destroy you, Iris said, her voice carried directly into the minds of every being in both fleets. We could end your existence as easily as you planned to end the Remni. But that is not what we want. We want you to take a message back to your arbiters. She paused, letting the fear sink in. Humanity remembers. We remember what you tried to do to us. We remember what you have done to 1,000 other species. And we are coming. Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. We will return to council space, and we will give every species you have enslaved the same choice you tried to deny us. Freedom or continued servitude. The arbiters will never allow this, Torrent said. They will gather every fleet in the galaxy. They will crush you. They are welcome to try. But first, ask yourself this. We have been in exile for 200 years. We have built a fleet that makes your entire armada look like toys. We have developed technologies you cannot comprehend. What do you think we will accomplish in the 800 years we have left? She released her hold on their systems. Power returned. Navigation came back online. Go, tell your masters what you have seen, and tell them that humanity sends its regards. The council fleet fled. On the Remni homeworld, 8 billion beings watched the human ships in the sky and wept with joy. For millions of years, they had dreamed of freedom. They had passed down memories of what they had been before standardization, hiding the stories and songs and art that the council never thought to examine. Now those dreams had a protector. Iris descended to the planet's surface and met with the Remni leaders. They were small beings with 4 arms and golden eyes, the same species that had whispered encouragement to Raymond Cole 2 centuries ago. We never stopped believing, their leader said. Even when the council told us you were gone, we knew you would return. Iris knelt so that she was at eye level with the small being. We are just getting started. There are other species like yours, species that remember what they were before the council took everything from them. We are going to find them. We are going to wake them up. And together, we are going to build something the galaxy has never seen. What will you build? Iris stood and looked at the sky, where human ships still patrolled, protecting a world that was not their own. Freedom, she said. We are going to build freedom. The war for the galaxy had begun. And for the first time in 600 million years, the council was afraid. 400 years had passed since the exile, and the galaxy was divided. On one side stood the awakened coalition, led by humanity and joined by 47 species that had rejected the Council's genetic modifications. They controlled nearly a third of the galaxy, worlds where beings were free to grow, to change, to become whatever they wished. On the other side stood the Preserved Alliance, led by the Council and supported by species that feared what freedom might bring. They remembered the ancient wars, the burning star clusters, the trillions who died before the Council brought order. To them, humanity was not a liberator, but a destroyer, undoing millions of years of carefully maintained peace. And in the middle, watching both sides prepare for a war that could tear the galaxy apart, was a young human named Oliver Adebayo. Oliver was different from other awakened humans. He had no great powers of the mind. He could not move objects with his thoughts, or reach across light years to touch other consciousnesses. Instead, he had been born with a gift that seemed almost useless compared to what others could do. He could feel what others felt, not read their thoughts, not control their emotions, simply feel them as if they were his own. The joy and sorrow of billions pressed against his mind constantly, a weight that would have driven most people mad. But Oliver had learned to use this gift. He understood people, all people, in a way that no one else could. And that understanding had made him the greatest diplomat humanity had ever produced. Now he stood on Centrum itself, the ancient capital of the Council, invited to negotiate a peace that everyone believed was impossible. The Grand Chamber was different from the one Raymond Cole had faced. 4 centuries of awakening had changed the galaxy's balance of power. Where once the Council had ruled absolutely, now they bargained for weakness. Half of the 9,000 species that once filled this room had joined the awakened coalition or declared neutrality. Primarch Velian still lived, ancient and bitter, its silver threads no longer flowing with confidence, but twitching with barely contained rage. "You come here to offer peace," the Arbiter said. "But your idea of peace is the destruction of everything we have built. You want to unleash chaos upon a galaxy that has known stability for 600 million years." Oliver felt the emotions in the room. Fear from the preserved species, who genuinely believed that freedom meant destruction. Anger from the awakened representatives, who remembered what had been stolen from their ancestors. And underneath it all, in the ancient consciousness of Velian itself, something Oliver had not expected: grief. "Tell me about the First War," Oliver said quietly. The chamber went silent. No one spoke of the First War. It was a wound too deep, a memory too painful, even for beings who had existed for hundreds of millions of years. Velian's form rippled. "You know nothing of what you ask. I know that you were there. I know that you remember what happened before the Council existed. And I know that whatever you saw, whatever you experienced, it shaped everything you have done since." Oliver stepped forward, his voice gentle but steady. "I am not here to destroy you, Primarch. I am here to understand. Help me understand. What happened that made you so afraid of freedom?" For a long moment, Velian was silent. Then, slowly, the ancient being began to speak. Before the Council, there were the Builders. 1,000 species so powerful that they could reshape stars with a thought. They were gods young human. Gods who spent 1 billion years at war with each other. Every time one faction gained an advantage, the others would combine to destroy them. Entire galaxies burned. Entire dimensions were erased. And in the end, they destroyed themselves so completely that only fragments remained. The holographic displays around the chamber flickered, showing images from an age so ancient that light from those events had long since faded into the cosmic background. We who became the Council were the survivors, the weak species, the ones who had hidden while the gods fought. And when the fighting was over, we made a choice. Never again. We would prevent any species from becoming powerful enough to threaten galactic stability. We would maintain peace through control, through standardization, through the elimination of potential. And humanity threatened that peace, Oliver said. Humanity terrified us. You carried the genetic legacy of the architects themselves, the same beings who seeded life throughout the galaxy. You had the potential to become what the builders had been. We thought that by exiling you, by cutting you off from galactic resources, we could weaken you enough to neutralize the threat. Velian's form collapsed inward, becoming smaller, more fragile. We were wrong. We made you stronger. We gave you time to grow without our interference. And now you have returned, and everything we built to prevent catastrophe is crumbling. Oliver felt the truth of every word. The Primarch was not lying. It genuinely believed that it had been protecting the galaxy. Every terrible act, every species modified into submission, every dream crushed, all of it done in service of a fear so deep that 600 million years had not diminished it. And then Oliver felt something else dot a presence at the edge of reality. Something watching. Something that had been watching for a very long time. His gift had never extended beyond living beings before. But this presence was alive, in some incomprehensible way. Alive and ancient, and filled with an emotion that Oliver could barely understand. Loneliness. Loneliness so vast that it made the entire galaxy seem small. Primarch, Oliver whispered. What is the absence? Velian's reaction was immediate and violent. The ancient being expanded to fill half the chamber, silver threads crackling with energy that tore holes in reality itself. How do you know that name? How can you possibly know that name? Because I can feel it. Right now. At the edge of everything. Watching us. Oliver's voice shook, but he did not back down. What is it? What are you really afraid of? The chamber had descended into chaos. Representatives were fleeing. Security forces were surrounding Oliver. But Velian raised a tendril and stopped them all. Leave us. Everyone. Now. Minutes later, Oliver stood alone with the oldest being in the galaxy. And Velian finally told him the truth. The architects did not ascend because they wanted to. They ascended because they discovered something terrible. The universe is not alone. There are things beyond reality, things that existed before the first moment of time. And one of those things has been watching our universe since its birth. The absence. Yes, it has been waiting, learning. For billions of years, it has been trying to understand what we are. And we have been trying to make sure it never finds anything interesting enough to attract its full attention. Oliver understood now. The Council's control. The enforced stagnation. It was not just about preventing war. It was about preventing growth. Keeping the galaxy small and quiet and unremarkable so that the thing beyond would not notice. And humanity changed that. Humanity is a beacon, Velian said. Everything you have built, everything you have become, it calls to the absence, like a signal fire in the darkness. Your awakening has attracted its attention in ways we have never seen before. What does it want? Velian's form shrank until it was barely visible, a small cluster of silver threads trembling with fear. It wants to not be alone anymore. It wants to consume every consciousness in existence, to absorb us all into itself, to finally have companionship after an eternity of solitude. And now that it has seen what humanity is capable of, it believes it has finally found beings worthy of its interest. Oliver felt the weight of this knowledge settle on his shoulders. The war between the awakened and the preserved suddenly seemed insignificant. The conflicts of the past 400 years were nothing compared to what was coming. How long do we have? Decades? Perhaps a century. It is moving slowly, but it is moving. And when it arrives, nothing we have built will be enough to stop it. Oliver closed his eyes and reached out with his gift. Across the galaxy, he felt the consciousness of billions upon billions of beings. awakened and preserved, human and alien, all of them alive, all of them precious, all of them facing an extinction they did not even know was coming. He made a decision. Then we need to stop fighting each other, he said. We need to prepare. Together. You cannot fight the absence. The architects themselves could not fight it. The architects ran. They hid themselves beyond reality and left the rest of us to face the consequences. Oliver opened his eyes, and in them was a determination that made even the ancient arbiter pause. Humanity does not run. We never have. And if this thing from beyond wants to consume our universe, it will have to go through every single one of us first. He turned and walked toward the door. Call off your fleets. End the war. Tell every species in the galaxy what you have told me. Because ready or not, the real battle is coming. And we are all going to need each other if we want to. Survive. The war between awakened and preserved ended that day. The war for the survival of everything was about to begin. The 1,000 years of exile ended on a day when the stars themselves held their breath. Oliver Adebayo stood at the edge of reality, in a place where space and time lost all meaning. Behind him, the entire galaxy waited in unified consciousness, every awakened being linked together in a network that spanned billions of minds. Humans and Remni, former council species and newly awakened civilizations. Even Primarch Velian, ancient enemy turned desperate ally, contributed its consciousness to the link. Before Oliver, the absence waited. It was impossible to describe what he saw. The absence was not a creature, or a machine, or any physical thing. It was a wound in existence, an emptiness that had been alone since before the universe began. When Oliver looked at it, he did not see darkness. He saw hunger, loneliness, a need so vast that it had spent eternities trying to fill the void inside itself. We have prepared for 50 years, Oliver said. His voice carried across dimensions by the linked consciousness of 1 trillion beings. We have built weapons that can unmake stars. We have developed technologies that can tear holes in reality itself. We are ready to fight you with everything we have. The absence responded, not in words, but in feelings that pressed against Oliver's gift like a tidal wave of despair. It had existed before the universe. It had watched every galaxy form and die. It had consumed countless realities, absorbing civilizations beyond counting into itself. And still it was alone. Still it ached. Still it reached out, desperately seeking something, anything, that could make the pain stop. But we are not going to fight you, Oliver continued. Behind him. Across the galaxy, beings who had prepared for war felt confusion. This was not the plan. The plan was to unite every consciousness in existence, to combine their strength into a single weapon that might be powerful enough to drive the absence back into the void. Oliver had a different idea. You have been alone since the beginning of time. You have consumed universes looking for companionship. But consuming is not connecting. Taking is not sharing. You have never actually been with anyone, have you? You have only ever been next to them, around them, through them. Never with them. The absence paused. For the first time in its eternal existence, something had surprised it. Let me show you what you have been missing, Oliver said. He opened his gift completely, not just to the beings behind him, but to the absence itself. He let it feel what he felt. The joy of connection, the comfort of understanding, the warmth of being known by another consciousness. All the emotions he had carried his entire life, every feeling he had ever absorbed from others, he offered freely. The absence recoiled. This was not an attack. This was not a trap. This was something it had never experienced in all its endless existence. This was kindness. Iris Cole, now 500 years old and the most powerful human who had ever lived. added her consciousness to Oliver's. She showed the absence what humanity had learned in their 1,000 years of exile. How suffering could be transformed into strength. How isolation could become an opportunity for growth. How the worst circumstances could forge the greatest achievements. Primarch Velian joined them. The ancient arbiter opened its memories to the absence, showing it 600 million years of guilt. All the species modified into submission. All the potential crushed in the name of safety. Velian had believed it was protecting the galaxy, but it had always known, deep inside, that it was also perpetuating pain. The Remni added their voices. They sang the old songs, the ones they had hidden for millions of years, while pretending to be content with their modifications. Songs about beauty and hope, and the courage to dream of something better. One by one, every consciousness in the linked network contributed something. A memory, an emotion, a moment of connection that had meant something. The first human to walk on the moon. The last architect to ascend beyond reality. A child on a distant world seeing the stars for the first time. And the absence began to change that it had spent eternities consuming. It had never learned how to receive. But now, surrounded by beings who offered themselves freely, it felt something it had forgotten was possible. It felt less alone. The process took years. Oliver stood at the edge of reality, maintaining the connection, while the absence slowly learned what it meant to be part of something rather than the consumer of everything. It was not easy. There were moments when the ancient hunger nearly overwhelmed the fragile bond. There were times when Oliver thought he would be lost in the vastness of that eternal loneliness. But humanity had learned patience during their exile. They had learned that the greatest victories came not from force, but from persistence. And they had learned that even the most broken things could be healed, if someone cared enough to try. On the day the transformation was complete, the absence spoke its first true word, thank you. It did not disappear. It did not consume. Instead, it contracted, pulling itself back from the edges of reality, making space for the universe it had threatened to destroy. I will not intrude, it said. Its voice now something Oliver could actually hear rather than just feel. But may I watch? May I stay near? I do not wish to be alone anymore. Oliver smiled, and the expression was echoed by 1 trillion minds across the galaxy. You are welcome to stay. We have room for one more. The war that never was ended, not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. 50 years later, the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. The council was gone, replaced by a new governing body where every species had equal voice. Modifications were no longer forced upon anyone. Species were free to grow and change and become whatever they wished. Some chose to awaken, developing powers that would have seemed miraculous to their ancestors. Others chose to remain as they were, content with the gifts nature had given them. And humanity, the species that had been exiled for refusing to submit, found themselves at the center of it all. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as teachers, as healers, as the beings who had shown the galaxy that there was another way. Oliver Adebayo retired to a small house on Earth, the planet where everything had begun. He tended a garden and watched his grandchildren play, ordinary activities for a man who had touched the consciousness of something older than time itself. Iris Cole visited him sometimes. She was ancient now, her body sustained by technologies that made death a choice rather than a requirement. But she still remembered being a frightened teenager in an underground facility, wondering what humanity would become. We did it, she said one afternoon, sitting beside him in the garden. 1,000 years of exile, and we built something that shocked the entire galaxy. Oliver watched a butterfly land on a flower. Even now, he could feel its simple consciousness, the tiny spark of life that animated its wings. The architects chose well, he said. They knew what we could become. They knew we would not give up, no matter how hard things got. Do you think they are watching? From wherever they went? Oliver closed his eyes and reached out with his gift. He stretched beyond the galaxy, beyond the absence at the edge of reality, into dimensions that human language could not describe. Somewhere very far away, he felt a presence, ancient, powerful, and proud. Yes, he said, I think they are watching, and I think they are pleased. Iris nodded and looked up at the sky, where ships from 100 different species moved among the stars. What do we do now? We have achieved everything we set out to achieve. The exile is long over. The galaxy is free. Even the thing that threatened to destroy everything has become our ally. Oliver opened his eyes and smiled. Now we start the next chapter. There are other universes out there, other realities, other beings who might be as lonely as the absence once was. We have learned how to heal. We have learned how to connect. Maybe it is time to share those lessons beyond the borders of our own existence. He stood up and stretched, an ordinary human gesture from an extraordinary man. The architects ascended because they were afraid. They ran from the darkness. But we are not going to run. We are going to walk into that darkness and bring light with us. That is what humanity does. That is what we have always done. In the sky above Earth, a new ship was being constructed, larger than anything that had come before, designed to travel not between stars, but between realities themselves, the exile that had begun with. Punishment ended with a new journey. Humanity had proven itself to one galaxy. Now, they were ready to change the universe, and somewhere, beyond the edge of everything, in a place where existence itself was just beginning, something waited to be discovered. The adventure was only beginning.